The second stage is called the produce. And here we actually have already set up our organization and we start thinking about that what kind of services should we actually create. We will have three processes that we will introduce over here: service design, change management, and deployment and release management. Those are all needed to create a service. But in altogether, it's about the basic idea is that building a service that the consumers can consume and we will provide. So we will pick up some information from consumer interaction and we will create a lot of other information, especially in the service design. That is the next process that we are going to talk about. We already have established governance model and strategy, and we would use that one to answer the question that is this the service that we should deliver, because is it a kind of service that we have agreed to do and we are good at. The second one is the good question is that can we deliver this service? That is actually by that do we have the capabilities needed for this one? They can be internal or they can be external from partners. And also when building a service, we should ask that how we can build this and how we can maintain it. So it would actually have an architecture that makes sense, both within the service, but also considering all the other stuff that we have in the organization, like selecting the technologies that we have the knowledge to support would be something. But altogether, the customer needs need to be thought out before we get processed, but more about that one in the coming service design process. Organizations have developed stuff that they claim to be services, even though we nowadays talk quite a lot about product. Uh, I'm not going into details of those definitions in that one, what is technology and what is technology plus work. But we have had bad situations where we have gone to technology first. And our primary concern has been that what the technology can do, and not the things that we should be asking ourselves is that what does the customer want, what are the functionalities, and what are also known as the utility, what does the customer get, and then also the warranty, how does the customer get it, how about our ability to support it in forms of availability, capacity, and performance, and security, and that kind of stuff. So therefore, the process of service design. So we should design the utility and the warranty and the experience of the service already from the beginning, so we would avoid the surprises in real life afterwards. Another quote from me, the quotes are practically from me and my experience, is that think about not just the first day, but the complete life cycle of the service, because plenty of the stuff that we need to design and cause work and cost for us are happening after the first day. I mean, the support and the changes on the second day, the users that contact us and need to be supported. So try to get around that from the development phase, how to just get the technology working, to also include the elements that are required for ongoing operations of the service. So if you can both think about the first day functionality as well as all the support and work aspects concerning the service, you have done a proper service design. We must understand the needs of the consumers, but we did that one already in the consumer interaction. And the second perspective that is very helpful is to think about that in what kind of situations will the service be used, and think about timely aspects on volume aspects. And within that one, you will actually touch the demand, like how many users this will have from the day one, how fast do they actually accumulate, do they floatate during the time cycle, like for example, and is it just the users of the service or is it their support for the service? Like for example, the law has stated that the universities start in the first day of September every year. It has been the same day for over 100 years in Finland, and still not so much anymore. I've been using it as an example for a long time. It a bit surprises the organization that the new students come in and they have all those questions that where is my account and how do I use this service? So the universities are now prepared for that one. They have the September practically pretty much for those new students and focus on that one because the old students already know the tricks and they are fine with that one. But as the new students get along and survive the first month, they likely have less, for example, IT related questions after that one. So that's a clear dynamics of the service on the services that they need to provide. So that kind of stuff would need to be investigated and guessed or analyzed and then prepared for. The second one is the service availability. I mean, it has certain requirements in our context. When do the, for example, the IT system need to be used in daytime or in certain part of the month, and that affects about when do we do our maintenance updates and in generally if we just have a random incidents shutting down the service, that how likely those are and how critical those are, that do we need to do some technical redundancy and so on. So that needs to be designed before even the first piece of code is written or first hardware is purchased. And then just not when the service can be used, but into how much usage it has. I mean, it has processing power, memory, all these kind of technical details. They must be planned in also what now and also considering the demand and the growth. And I would take also the support related work into the capacity discussion. Even though the high-level consumer interaction and the understanding of the customer is needed, when we design a service, we need to know more in detail. And that requires the mentioned in-depth customer needs analysis. So then we get all the necessary requirements or enough of the necessary requirements in the right way. Those are divided into features, what the service needs to do, as well as the warranty elements. I was mentioning the availability and capacity and information security and continuity is a one relevant element. And there are a lot of others, but those are the something to start with. How to do the job to get the necessary details? Well, ask them. Go to customers, go to users, interview them that how do you use the service and what is important. There's a great method of watching the observation of the work to be done. So spend a day or half day together with the users. Ask what they do, what else they do, then use the service to get the understanding of the context that where they need the service and in what form. Uh, this is one way to do it. You might have other customers that are a little bit of the same kind. So if you plan a new service for a new customer, you might consider your experiences, or you might gather such kind of competence or understanding from consultants or some public sources of peer analysis. So think about the competitors and their products. If they are building something, there's most likely a reason for that one, and therefore it might also be an input what kind of service is expected from you. But you need to be unique to attract your customers, not just the cheapest, but also the right kind of value in the right kind of price and form. So therefore, copying is not, you can get somewhere by copying, but you cannot gain much competitive advantage with that one. So take it from the perspective that know your customers and users well. And together, not just what is used, but where it's used. As I mentioned, observing the work to be done and knowing the other things that the users and customers do will help you to understand the stress and the speed and other limits of the information, and even just manual interaction of information between other services and systems. When you have gathered and analyzed the requirements and you move on with the service design, you come into the question that how will you actually establish the infrastructure and utility, I mean the functionality and the warranty. And you have two options. You can build it by yourself or you can buy stuff. And you can make these choices either black and white, either one of those was or some combination. So therefore you can develop the components from scratch, and that has usually takes the most effort. It creates most competitive advantage in that sense that it's all yours, but it has usually been the most cost burdened option because it takes the most effort. Now, this is also a thought that has changed a lot within the last 12 months, together with if it includes coding and you can use some automated or semi-automated assistance of AI, it might not be that much more costly than before. But take the idea that if there are standard building blocks by service providers, then it's likely that you can share the cost with other users, and therefore buying something that is already there is an option, and you can just add the configuration and customer understanding and support for those ones. But anyway, you can choose anywhere between these two, building something on your own and buying some other stuff. That's common too. Usually you also have you're always buying either some development platform or infrastructure. So therefore, purely everything by yourself is a rare option, considering all the things that are required to provide an IT service. Think also about the risks. I mean, considering the continuity and the rise of the prices and vendor lock-in, this is a time and place to consider that will the service provider you choose to deliver some part, will they raise prices or, for example, then stop selling the service to you? If and when you end up using service providers to help you in these tasks because they already have the knowledge and experience, and then they can sell you that in better scale than providing and acquiring that competence yourself, then consider a couple of facts. First of all, you give your promises to customers and the service providers only give promises to you. And secondly, what they give, kind of promises they give to you is never the same thing as you promise to customer. You always promise more to the customer, including the combination of the previous plus adding your work on that one. So it's your job to make the service providers work for you as well as together for you. Now, This comes in the fact that there are quite a lot of things that require coordination between these parties, like making a change when somebody's operating the infrastructure and second one is developing the code. They both have a contract with you, but they don't have a contract with each other. And then when we come into simple things like who's authorized to ask other parties job or do something, it's your job to agree what are the rules and what are the authorizations. So this kind of management and delivery of services together with multiple vendors or service providers is an own task that you need to organize in a service management perspective as part of your service management system. And this management of multiple vendors as part of your service provision is also known as the service integration and management. That is bringing as an acronym this separate perspective on the table and guiding you what are the questions that you need to solve and what are the practices that you are welcome to use to make this happen. And one of the things that you need to plan in your service is how you're going to monitor how well it's performing. We are going to talk about monitoring more in detail later on this course, but keep it on your service design list of actions because you should be able to monitor about availability, capacity, and performance, as well as the actual service provision. We already mentioned SIAM, which means that if you're going to provide services and you have vendors, you need to plan how they work for you and together for your service. Taking a level up, there might be that you are delivering services to your customers that are actually either not yours, that they're customers, so there's a SIAM perspective, or they are something that you don't have much interaction with. So therefore, the services aggregate in this sense that they are provided to customer that are even though they are not yours. So this one is that you need to work all the way together and at least avoid stuff of finger pointing of things in this context. Equally, the customer needs to have providing services and need to be working. Everybody makes some errors in some stage. So therefore try to find the solutions how to avoid the similar things in the future and how to learn from this one. The SIAM itself includes the idea of division all service management work for customer-related work, service integration work, and service provider work. And in that case, the service integrator is the one who defines the practices and guides through, for example, incidents like this one when certain external provider is not meeting their promises. This was part of the service design. Of course, there's a lot of other for this one. My recommendation is that as an organization, create a list of questions that need answering before you start making any decisions to actually build or set up a service. Use your personal history about things that you forgot last time. If you just collect all the stuff that you forgot earlier, you will have a quite comprehensive list of things. And that will actually then quite well manage the related risk about getting something up and running, being able to operate it, and the risk of providing something that customers don't need because you have included the customer interaction and all the related other service design things.